Darius Ellington had always thought of his restaurant, Ellie's Grill, as more than just a business. It was a legacy, a piece of his family's soul, passed down from his grandmother, Ellie. He had watched it grow from a small, humble spot in the neighborhood into something meaningful for the community. It wasn't just about the food, though the slow-cooked brisket, the golden cornbread, and the smoky barbecue sauce had their fair share of fans. It was about the feeling it gave people. It was about the warmth, the welcome, and the sense of belonging. Ellie's Grill was supposed to be a place where anyone could come, whether they had money to spend or not, and feel like they mattered. But recently, Darius had been hearing things. Whispers, reviews that weren't quite right, complaints that didn't sound like his restaurant. Trusted employees had been dropping little hints, saying that the vibe of the place had shifted. Something was off, and his gut was telling him that the place wasn't what it used to be. The problem? He hadn't been able to get a clear picture of it. He was the owner, but lately, he was always bogged down with meetings, handling suppliers, dealing with the back-end logistics. He wasn't in the front lines, engaging with the customers like he used to. And so, he decided to do something most bosses wouldn't dare. He would go undercover. No fancy suits, no expensive watches, just a simple look. Old jeans with a tiny rip near the knee, a faded black hoodie, and a Braves cap pulled low over his brow. He dressed down on purpose, hoping that no one would recognize him. He knew it was risky, but he had to see the truth for himself. No one would know him this way, not even the people who worked for him, the ones he paid every week to help run the place. It was 12:46 p.m. when he stepped through the front door, right in the middle of the lunch rush. The familiar smell hit him immediately, the kind of smells that made you forget your troubles, if only for a moment. The brisket, the cornbread, the tang of barbecue sauce all mingling in the air. He paused for a moment, inhaling deeply. Ellie used to say that food was a warm hug with flavor. This place was supposed to feel like that, like home. But as he stood in line, something already felt off. No one greeted him. Not a single look, not a smile, not even a casual glance. The two cashiers were busy with their own things. Kendall, a lanky kid with short twists, was tapping away at his phone under the counter, and Marina, the other cashier, was chewing gum so loudly that it nearly drowned out the country music playing in the background. The air in the restaurant felt colder than it ever had before. "Next," Marina called, not looking up from her phone. Darius stepped forward, forcing a smile. "Can I get the pulled pork sandwich and a side of baked beans, please?" Marina didn't even make eye contact. She just tapped the order into the screen and barely acknowledged him when he handed her cash. "Thanks," he muttered, stepping aside to wait for his order. But that's when he heard it. "You see him?" Kendall asked, his voice dripping with disdain. "Another one of those walk-ins, probably off Peachtree." Marina snorted, clearly amused. "Bet he don't even tip. That's what happens when you start letting anybody in here. Ever since they hired from that shelter program or whatever, it's been downhill." Darius froze. He didn't move. He stood perfectly still, his mind racing. He should have been furious, but what he felt wasn't just anger. There was something deeper, something colder. Disappointment. Disappointment in the place that had meant so much to him. Disappointment in the people he'd trusted to carry it forward. It wasn't just about the food anymore. Ellie's Grill wasn't just a place to eat. It was about giving people a shot. It was about creating opportunities for those who had been overlooked, for people who were given a second chance. It was about making a real difference. But here, in this space he had poured so much of himself into, the very heart of the place was being forgotten. The people working there didn't even believe in it anymore. Darius glanced around. An older man sat by the window, frowning at his drink. A young mother was struggling to calm her toddler while waiting for a server who hadn't bothered to check in for 10 minutes. There was no laughter, no warmth in the air. It felt cold and sterile. Nothing like what his grandmother would have wanted for this place. He could almost hear her voice in his head, telling him how Ellie's Grill was supposed to be a beacon of hope, a place where the community could come together. With a heavy heart, Darius turned around and walked slowly to the counter. He knew what he had to do. "Actually, cancel that sandwich," he said, his voice calm but with an undercurrent of disappointment. Kendall barely looked up. "You sure?" "Yeah," Darius replied, his tone flat. "Lost my appetite." He walked out without another word, pushing open the door and stepping back into the parking lot. As he sat in his car, he stared at the steering wheel, his fingers tapping a slow rhythm on the dashboard. His mind was a whirlwind of emotions. What hurt more? The fact that no one recognized him, or the fact that they didn't care? He wasn't sure. What he did know was that he wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. He needed to understand how deep the problem went. He needed to listen before he could do anything about it. So, he stayed there, in his car, watching the world go by. After a few minutes, he stepped out, grabbed a coffee from the gas station down the street, and returned to the alley behind the restaurant. No cameras back there, just an old steel door where the cooks entered and exited. It was time to find out what was really going on behind the scenes. The smell of slow-cooked meat and fresh cornbread filled the air, but Darius Ellington barely noticed it. His mind was focused on the voices drifting from the cracked kitchen window above the back alley. The laughter was unmistakable. Big Reggie, the grill master. Darius remembered when he'd hired Reggie years ago after a recommendation from a halfway house. Reggie had been struggling, but through hard work, he turned his life around. Now he not only worked at Ellie's Grill, but mentored the younger kitchen staff, helping them find their way. Darius listened, staying hidden in the shadows, his heart sinking with every word. "I'm telling you, man," Kendall's voice rang out, smirking as he leaned against the counter. "He ain't never coming back. If he does, he'll probably walk in all fancy, act like he invented gumbo or something." Marina joined in, her voice thick with mockery. "Mr. Ghost Boss, that's what I call him. Got his little picture on the wall, but never shows his face. What kind of boss runs a joint like that?" Big Reggie, who was usually the loudest laugh in the room, didn't join in. Instead, Darius heard the unmistakable sound of a chair creaking. Then, Reggie's voice, low but steady, cut through the air. "You all know he started this place with like $200 and a smoker in his driveway, right?" There was a pause. Darius's chest tightened. This was the moment. He could already tell that Reggie was about to set the record straight. "Yeah, so watch your mouth," Marina shot back, her voice sharp. "This ain't just a job for some folks," Reggie continued, his tone serious. "Some of us remember what this place used to mean." The silence that followed was thick, the tension palpable. Kendall scoffed, clearly unconvinced. "Man, relax. You act like he died or something. I'm just saying, if he don't care enough to show up, why should we care more than we have to?" Reggie's next words rang clear and sharp. "Keep talking like that, and you'll find out real quick why folks don't stick around here," he warned. Respect goes both ways. Darius took a step back from the wall, processing everything he had just overheard. He didn't know whether to be proud of Reggie for sticking up for what the restaurant meant, or ashamed that Kendall and Marina had slipped through the cracks in the first place. Where had he gone wrong? When did being a hands-off boss become synonymous with being absent? He could almost hear his grandmother's voice, the same words she'd repeat to him when he was a boy, her hands stirring pots of greens in the tiny kitchen in Georgia. "You can't plant a garden and forget to water it, baby. Don't matter how good the seeds are." Darius had hired good people, but he had left them unsupervised, without guidance, without accountability. Maybe being invisible was worse than being a bad boss. He hadn't been there when they needed him. He hadn't been actively involved. He had let the people he trusted slip away, not realizing that, in doing so, the soul of the place had started to fade. But before he could make any decisions, Darius needed to hear more, see more, understand exactly what had gone wrong. He couldn't fix the problem until he understood it fully. The next morning, he took action. At 7 a.m., he sent out a terse group message to his entire staff. Team meeting tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Attendance is required. No exceptions. No explanations. No emojis. No room for misinterpretation. He needed them to know he was serious, and this meeting was non-negotiable. Then he drove out of his usual spots, away from the neighborhood, and checked into a hotel just outside Marietta. He spent the night scribbling down everything he could remember, everything he had overheard, trying to make sense of it all. Tomorrow wasn't about firing anyone, not yet. It was about something bigger. It was about fixing the soul of the place. To do that, he needed to face the people who were poisoning it and the ones trying to save it, and he had to do it without the disguise. No hoodie, no anonymity. By the time morning came, Darius was restless. He barely slept. His mind replayed every moment from the day before on a loop. Marina's gum-chewing mockery, Kendall's smug attitude, and Reggie's quiet defense of what the restaurant had once meant. At 8:47 a.m., Darius sat in his car, parked outside the diner. This time, he wore no disguise, no hoodie, just a charcoal blazer, a clean button-down shirt, jeans and boots, the usual look when he dropped by before the pandemic had changed everything. Through the windshield, he watched as each employee showed up. Marina was late, phone glued to her hand, barely looking up as she entered. Kendall came in next, earbuds in, laughing to himself at something on his phone. Then, Reggie, the first one there, unlocking the side door with a key Darius had personally given him. Darius waited until the clock hit 9:02 before opening the car door and stepping out. Heads turned. The first to spot him was Charisse, her eyebrows shooting up in surprise. Then Reggie's eyes locked with Darius's. He gave a subtle nod, respectful but familiar. Marina and Kendall, on the other hand, froze. The humor drained from their faces, and they stood there, speechless. Darius walked past them without a word, his footsteps echoing in the quiet morning air, and entered his own diner. Inside, the staff had gathered near the front booths. They were awkwardly spaced out, unsure whether to sit or stand. Darius let the silence linger longer than necessary, letting the tension build before clearing his throat. "I won't keep you long," he began, his voice steady but carrying an underlying weight. "But I need to say some things, and I want you to hear me, really hear me." He paused, scanning the room, making eye contact with everyone. "This place, it's named after my grandmother, Ellie Mae Ellington. She passed 15 years ago, but if you'd ever met her, you'd understand why this place means more than money, more than food or 5-star reviews." Darius saw Charisse's eyes soften, and Reggie straightened up, the respect clear in his posture. Ellie had always been the kind of woman who fed people, whether they could pay or not. She gave second chances like they were candy, and she believed people weren't broken, just overlooked. Darius's voice grew firmer. "When I started Ellie's Grill, I wanted to build her kitchen at scale. A place where people could eat, work, laugh, and feel like they belonged." He looked around the room. "But this place, right here, right now, it's not what it was supposed to be, and that's on me." Darius took a slow, steady breath as he stood in front of his staff, the weight of the words he was about to say settling heavily on his shoulders. He had been distant, far too distant, and now, for the first time in a long while, he was here, truly here, to face the truth. He stepped forward, his gaze scanning the room, locking eyes with Marina, then Kendall, then the rest of his team. "Yesterday," he began, his voice calm but unwavering, "I walked in here and didn't recognize what I built. That got their attention." He went on, his words measured and purposeful. "I came in dressed down, ordered a sandwich, and stood right there," he said, pointing to the spot where he had stood just the day before. "And I heard 2 employees talking about the man who supposedly owns this place. They were saying he doesn't show up, That he doesn't care? Talking about new hires like they're trash." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. They didn't even have to say their names. The entire room knew. Darius let out a quiet exhale. "I heard it all, and I walked out without my sandwich, without raising my voice, because I needed to understand what went wrong." The room was still. A suffocating, uncomfortable silence filled the air as Darius looked directly at Marina, then Kendall. "I own this place. I built it with scraped knees and borrowed money. But somewhere along the way, I let things slide. I stopped showing up. That's on me." He took a slow breath, his voice hardening just slightly. "But that disrespect, that carelessness, that's on you." The silence in the room thickened, as if the truth had physically settled into the space, making it heavy, unmovable. No one moved. No one dared to speak. Every pair of eyes was fixed on Darius, the truth now hanging in the air like an unspoken challenge. Marina finally looked up. There was a half smile on her face, the kind people wear when they know they've messed up but aren't ready to admit it. Kendall leaned back against the counter, arms crossed tightly, trying to appear cool, but his foot tapped quickly, betraying his anxiety. Darius stepped closer, his presence steady and commanding. "I'm not here to yell," he said calmly, "but I am here to fix this." His eyes scanned the room, resting briefly on Reggie, who stood a little straighter, his gaze full of understanding. "Some of you still carry the heart of this place, and I appreciate that more than you know," Darius continued, his voice softer for a moment. "But others—" He turned to the rest of the room. "You've been clocking in, grabbing paychecks, and treating this place like it's beneath you. That ends now." The silence cracked as Tiana, a server in her mid-30s, slowly raised her hand. "Mr. Ellington," she said, her voice hesitant but sincere. "I didn't know you were watching like that, but thank you for showing up." Darius nodded, the weight of his words still lingering. "I should have done it sooner," he admitted. "I let my distance become confusion and let people fill in the blanks with stories that weren't true." He looked back at the team, eyes steady. "I'm putting everything on the table. New rules, new expectations, but also new chances." He reached into his back pocket, pulling out a piece of paper and unfolding it. "Starting next week, we're doing monthly staff check-ins, real ones, not 5-minute hallway chats. I'll be in here twice a week. You'll see my face." The room shifted slightly, the murmurs beginning to rise. "And we're reintroducing customer feedback reviews, not the ones on Yelp, the real ones from the people sitting in those booths." Someone muttered, "About time." But it wasn't sarcastic, it was hopeful. Darius's voice grew firm again. "But listen close. If you don't want to be here, don't clock in. Don't waste my time or insult this place by pretending it's just a job. Not here. If you can't bring respect into this building, respect for the people, the food, the purpose, then you're free to leave." There was a moment of stillness. No one moved. Darius's eyes scanned the room again, a quiet challenge hanging in the air. Then he turned toward Kendall and Marina. They straightened up immediately, but neither said a word. "You two," he said, his tone a little harder now. "Come with me." Without waiting for a response, Darius turned and walked toward the back of the restaurant. He held the door open without looking back. After a beat, Kendall and Marina followed, stepping into the narrow hallway behind the pantry. No customers, no eyes, just them and him. Darius shut the door behind them softly, making sure they were in private. "I'm giving you this moment," he said, his voice quieter now, more personal. "Speak freely. Tell me what this place means to you, or doesn't." Kendall exhaled and looked away, uncomfortable. Marina folded her arms, the tension palpable. Darius waited, not rushing them. I just work here," Kendall said finally, shrugging. "It's not personal, it's a check." Darius shook his head. "Then you've been cashing the wrong kind of check," he said, his voice steady. This place was never just about food. Marina spoke up. "Okay, but you weren't around though," she said quietly, her voice softening. "We felt like it didn't matter." Darius took a breath. "Fair," he admitted. "That's on me. I stepped away, and I shouldn't have." He leaned against the wall, his arms crossed. "But how does that justify talking about other staff like they're garbage, or mocking the same man who signs your checks? You think that kind of talk builds trust?" Marina didn't meet his eyes. "No," she said quietly. Kendall remained silent. "I'm not firing you," Darius continued. "Not today, because maybe what this place needs isn't fewer people, but better ones. Ones who learn, ones who grow." He pointed toward the kitchen door. "But you've got one shot to prove you belong here. That starts now. Show me you care, not with words, but with how you treat people. And if you can't, walk away." He opened the door, standing back to let them decide. No one moved. Back in the main room, the energy had shifted. It wasn't cheerful yet, but it was focused, alert. The tension had lifted, but the work was only beginning. Darius clapped his hands together once. "All right," he said. "We open in 30 minutes. Let's see if Ellie's still in this room." As the staff began preparing for the lunch rush, Darius knew that this was only the beginning. The real test was coming. It was time to see if they could rebuild what had been broken. As the day moved on, the energy inside Ellie's grill began to shift. The familiar rhythm of the diner, once disrupted, slowly found its beat again. Darius stood quietly by the coffee station, his notepad in hand, taking mental notes. No yelling, no micromanaging, just watching. He wasn't there to hover, but to observe, to understand the dynamics of the space he had built. Charisse worked the grill like a well-oiled machine, moving with ease as if every turn was instinctual. Reggie, as always, was the maestro in the kitchen, orchestrating the flow of orders and the movement of the staff with the precision of a seasoned conductor. Tiana moved through the tables, her warm smile and soft jokes bringing genuine laughter, a welcome sound in the otherwise quiet diner. But at the register, things were still shaky. Marina was trying. You could see the effort in her actions. Her smile was more frequent, her posture straighter, and when she said, "Thank you," it almost sounded genuine. But it was awkward. It felt like someone wearing new shoes that hadn't been broken in yet. Kendall, on the other hand, was mostly quiet. He took orders quickly, avoiding eye contact, disappearing into the back any chance he got. By 12:46 p.m., exactly the same time as the day before, Darius watched a young man walk in. He was probably no older than 19, nervous and fidgeting. His eyes scanned the room like he was looking for exits, his hands stuffed in his pocket. Marina glanced at him briefly, then quickly turned away. Kendall stepped back from the counter, his shoulders stiff. That's when Reggie came out from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel. He nodded once at the young man. "You got this," he said, his voice warm, encouraging. The kid hesitated for a moment, then took a step forward. Can I get the catfish combo with greens instead of fries?" His voice was barely audible. Marina tapped the screen without looking up. "That it?" she asked flatly. The kid nodded, his eyes wide as she rang up the order. As she handed him the receipt, Darius could see her glance over at Kendall, but Kendall didn't return her look. Instead, he turned away, arms crossed, his gaze focused elsewhere. "Order up in 10, Marina mumbled, her voice barely a whisper. The kid mumbled a quiet, "Thanks," then stepped aside, clutching the receipt like it was his lifeline. Darius had seen enough. When the line cleared, he walked over to the counter, his eyes locking with Marina's. "You know who that was?" he asked, his voice calm but firm. She blinked, clearly unsure. "No. Should I?" "His name's Isaiah Penn. Just started the shelter program last week. Came here on a recommendation," Darius explained. Marina's face shifted, a flicker of recognition and understanding passing through her. "Oh, he's not dangerous," Darius continued. "He's not broken. He's just trying to start over, like a lot of people who've worked here." Her mouth opened slightly, but she didn't say anything. Darius waited, letting the words sink in. "He's not the problem. You are," Darius added, his voice steady. She finally looked down, the weight of the truth sinking in. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't mean to treat him that way." Darius nodded, his voice softening. "I know you didn't, but don't say it to me. Show me through how you treat the next 10 people." A few minutes later, Isaiah got his food. Reggie handed it to him personally, smiling and giving him a fist bump. The kid's face lit up, and for the first time, Darius saw the spark of connection, of real human interaction. That small moment had a ripple effect throughout the entire shift. By the end of the day, the tip jar was full. The kitchen was spotless. People lingered just a little longer after their meals, a testament to the shift in energy that had taken place. Darius sat at his usual booth by the window, watching the staff clean up. Kendall walked over slowly, wiping his hands on a rag. His expression was nervous, but not cocky. "I talked too much," he said, looking down. "Didn't realize how loud I was." "You weren't just loud," Darius replied, his tone not unkind. "You were wrong." Kendall nodded, the weight of the words settling in. "Yeah," he admitted, pausing for a moment. Then he looked up at Darius. "I don't want to lose this job. I'll do better." Darius gave a short nod. "I believe in second chances, but only when the first one gets acknowledged." Kendall straightened up, the defiance from earlier gone. "Got it," he said, before walking off. Not puffed up, not crushed, just thinking. The culture wasn't fixed. Not yet, but today had cracked it open. Light was starting to pour in. The next morning, Darius was back before sunrise. The diner was quiet, the calm before the storm. He stood alone in the kitchen, coffee cup in hand, staring at a worn photo pinned to the corkboard above the prep table. It was a picture of his grandmother, Ellie, in her favorite church hat. She was smiling, arms crossed, that tough love in her eyes, the kind of look that told you she didn't play, but she always had your back. Darius whispered softly, "I almost lost this place, Grandma." Then, with a deep breath, he turned on the lights. By 8 a.m., the smell of bacon and biscuit dough began to fill the air, the familiar comfort that Ellie had always brought to the kitchen. He'd asked the team to meet again, and this time, there was no surprise. It was just a check-in before breakfast service. They gathered in the main dining room, sitting on booths or leaning against counters. The atmosphere was lighter than it had been all week. Darius stepped forward, his tone genuine. "I want to thank y'all for yesterday," he began. "That was the first time in a while this place felt like it used to." A few heads nodded in agreement, and Reggie smiled quietly from the back. But he wasn't done. "One day doesn't fix everything," he added. "It just shows who's willing to try." Darius let the words hang in the air for a moment before continuing. "So today, I'm giving everyone a choice. A real one." He pulled out 2 folders from under his arm and held them up for the room to see. "This one's for those who want to stay," he said, "who believe in what this place stands for and are willing to show up, not just physically, but with heart." He raised the second folder. "This one's for anyone who wants to move on. No questions, no hard feelings. You sign the paper, finish today's shift, and you'll get 2 weeks' pay and a recommendation letter." A ripple of quiet moved through the room as everyone took in the weight of the decision in front of them. It was time for Darius's team to choose, to either stand with him and build something worth fighting for, or walk away and leave it all behind. Darius watched as the day unfolded at Ellie's Grill, the rhythm of the diner flowing back into place. It wasn't louder or busier, it was simply right. The familiar ding of the front bell returned. The register clicked in rhythm, and the kitchen hummed with motion. But the biggest change wasn't in the food or the service. It was in the people. The staff greeted customers like neighbors, offering smiles and jokes without the bite of sarcasm. They cleaned like it mattered, because now it truly did. The change was tangible, not just in the air, but in the heart of the place. One Thursday afternoon, a man in a charcoal suit came in, looking like he'd wandered into the wrong spot. He was an out-of-towner, stiff and weary from travel. He glanced around, unsure of where he was. But then Tiana saw him. She brought him water before he could even ask for it, offering a warm smile. "Catfish is best today, just saying," she said, with that charm that had become so natural. By the time he left, he had to-go containers for his hotel fridge and a new favorite spot marked on his map. Darius watched it all from behind the counter, arms folded, but not with stress. He wasn't hiding, nor was he scouting. This time, he was home. Cherise, who had quietly been a part of the transformation, slid him a plate of peach cobbler with her signature touch. Brown sugar crust with a hint of cinnamon, just like Ellie used to make. Darius took a bite and smiled. "That's the one," he said. "She'd be proud of you." Later that afternoon, Isaiah returned. This time, he was smiling, his hoodie off, his shirt tucked in neatly. He had landed a job cleaning buses over on Glenwood and had just stopped by to thank Reggie. "I'm good, man," he said with a quiet pride. "Really, first time I've said that in a while." Reggie clapped him on the back. "That's what this place is for." Word had started to spread, not through Yelp, not on Instagram, but the old-fashioned way. A mom told her sister, a mailman told a retired vet, and one of the janitors from the courthouse brought in 3 co-workers on their lunch break. Quietly, Ellie's Grill was becoming what it was always meant to be again. Not perfect, but true. At closing time, Darius stepped out to the parking lot, standing alone for a moment. He leaned against the building, arms crossed, staring at the sign glowing above him. The old green and yellow neon flickered, a tube going dim in the corner, but he didn't call an electrician. He liked the imperfection. It reminded him that the place still had room to grow, just like the people inside. Cherise stepped out behind him, tying her apron. "You heading out?" "In a few," Darius replied. "Just giving myself a minute." She paused, then asked, "You good?" He nodded slowly. "I think I am." She smiled and handed him a folded sheet of paper. Customer left this on the table, said it was for the owner. Darius unfolded it. The handwriting was messy, cursive, and worn with age. It read, "Been coming here since y'all opened. Thought I lost the feeling when it changed, but today it felt like Ellie again. Whoever she was, I can tell she's still here. Thank you." He read it twice before folding it and putting it in his back pocket. It felt too important to leave behind. Cherise said nothing, just smiled and walked back inside. Darius stood there for a few more minutes, staring at the sign. Then he whispered softly, "We're still watering, Grandma." And with that, he walked back inside. Because no matter what you build in this world, it's not the walls or the name that makes it worth something. It's the people who protect the spirit behind it. Never assume a strong foundation means your work is done. Culture needs maintenance, respect needs reminding, and second chances. They need space to grow. Show up for your people, your purpose, and yourself. And if this story hit you somewhere real, share it. Not for views, but because someone out there needs to hear it. Someone who stopped showing up. Someone who forgot what they built. Remind them, it's not too late to walk back in and fix what's been broken.